Emotional algebra, where the heart meets the math. What is integral is derivative as you figure out your path. Power plus emotions equals more than you can see. Listening to the wisdom of our host, Dr. E. Emotional algebra with Dr. E.
Welcome to Emotional Algebra with Dr. E. Emotional Algebra is a podcast that helps listeners to understand the subtle calculations people make every day in their relationships with others and explores the known and unknown variables that affect our interactions in everyday lives. It's a podcast to help us all become better people through understanding the different variables that drive our behaviors. I'm your co-host, Andrew Tavani.
And I'm Dr. E.
Dr. E, we are about 2 weeks out from what was a very divisive election. It was polarizing. There was a lot of tension. People were on both sides very dug in behind their candidate. And now we've heard in the weeks since, we've heard about some stories about people actually affecting interpersonal relationships. I know you've heard from some people about these things. They've even made the news. There was a pretty big story about a woman who days after the election served her husband divorce papers. Another woman wrote a column in the Huffington Post saying that she's canceled her Christmas and Thanksgiving holidays over the election result and how people voted and so forth. So we wanted to talk about how to deal with this time. It's a difficult time where the holidays are upon us. How can we get along? How should people approach this? What should the emotional algebra be in dealing with the election result?
Right. And I think to me, this time of transition to, obviously there's a lot of issues coming up, even with the transition of government, the things that are being set up in terms of who's taking what offices, congressional issues. There is so much still going on that even though the election ended, it seems like in some ways some of the conflict may be just beginning. And that's a concern, because we all want to understand what got us here. So not that this time divides us more as a country, but that sometimes when we don't win, we still want to learn how to work with those who might have succeeded to give them the best opportunity, not necessarily to look good, but to help us all get through it. Because if all we're doing is doing things to help people look good, that doesn't come from integrity. That comes from a place of often, hiding one piece to show another. And I think that's one of the things that got us in this situation, no matter which side of the aisle we stand on. So I'm really hoping that people through this and through this episode, we can really help people see the wisdom in reaching out their hand and working together, in not just turning away or going away or using this time to mock other people or try to demean them, because that's all about having power over. We want to work towards equity, and equity is important. And right now, to me, we all really want to take some deep breaths. And in part, that's what we'll be talking about in a minute is, there's that song, Love is Like Oxygen. And we need oxygen right now. We need to take some deep breaths right now.
That's right. And today we actually have the help of a guest, very interesting guy we talked with a little bit before we started recording. His name is Eric Lucas. Eric is the founder and creator of the Oxygen Plan and Stress Number, which we're going to hear about and hear about how maybe that can apply to some of the issues people are facing out there in what is a tense time. I think like you said, go ahead, Dr. E.
Yeah, and I've known Eric for about 10 years, and he's got a great story. He had been an executive with General Mills, and he wanted to spend time with his daughters. So he retired early. He realized where things were important for him, and he made some of those choices with his life to dedicate his time to his daughter when she was young. He knows he can't get that time back, and he's raised a wonderful daughter, and he started some other businesses, including the Oxygen Plan. So I call him a serial entrepreneur, given his origin at General Mills.
Very good, Dr. E. And just looking at the Oxygen Plan, I mean, there are some similarities to some of his concepts and with your concepts of really just being analytical about this and looking at your emotions and so forth. So, I mean, unless you got anything else to say, Dr. E, I think we're ready to bring him in here. Should we
Let's bring
introduce
him
him
on
to the
in.
audience? All right, here
Absolutely.
he is, Eric Lucas. Welcome to Emotional Algebra with Dr. E. It's good to see you.
Hey, thanks, guys. It's great to be on with you. I'm a huge fan of your podcast and the work that you do.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's talk. A lot to discuss here, Eric and Dr. E. Like we talked about, a lot of people are dealing with this in different ways. When I say this, I mean the election outcome. What are Eric? What's your take on it? We kind of heard from Dr. E there. What's your take on sort of the early aftermath of the vote? And I think, as Dr. E pointed out, in some ways, it's just getting started. The conflict's just getting started.
Oh, absolutely. You know, from the oxygen standpoint, you know, our framework is basically a grab and go mental drive-through window, if you will, just in terms of help you to process your thoughts, all right, because thoughts dictate behaviors. So the oxygen plan really is a way of color coding those. People in your life are either oxygen for you, carbon dioxide for you, or carbon monoxide. So people, places, and things. And among those things, getting to your setup, it's just conversations, discussion topics, points of view on policy, if you will. And for some people, that stance is green. For some people, that stance is red. And so, according to the oxygen plan's paradigm, if it's green, increase it because it's part of your wellness. If it's carbon dioxide, it's draining for you. It's yellow. Color code your thoughts that way. And just like the traffic light in the intersection, you just can't stay there. You have to continue on, process, move on, make whatever changes or behaviors you need to. But for some people, discussion topics are red. And if it's red, it's dead and can't really discuss it, don't want to discuss it. It's not part of it, won't contribute to your wellness. It could contribute to your decline. And so understanding that some people have made that choice, I think, is partly self-preservation, and I would applaud it, just given the oxygen plan principles.
And so the oxygen plan is really interesting because it gives you sort of a really simple framework to think about some of these ideas in. Dr. E, what do you think about that? How does that sort of interplay with emotional algebra? I know that to me they seem very similar in ways and like almost complementary.
Absolutely. And I think in here, when you look at the idea of green, red, and yellow, and we look at our idea of the self-development model that I talked about episodes back, where we had the big circle with all the little circles inside. You know, Eric's plan has an assessment that is a part of an online app that you go ahead and take that assessment. And what that assessment is really kind of looking at is different areas or aspects of your life that you're looking at. Are they in the green, the yellow, or the red? So it's kind of like when we look at our own self and our self-development, there might be parts of our life that we feel are in the red. And there might be parts that are in the yellow, parts in the green. So I think what I also want people to address is sometimes when we're having discussions that are about politics that we're not going to find a resolution on that are read to us, it's important to say, okay, this isn't what I'm seeking in this moment. What I'm seeking is more, if I can get to the yellow at time just to get some breath, or get to the green in this and just say, let's create some boundaries, let's create some structure. That's great. Wow. After the fact, those are the things, to me, the reds are some of the things we also want to look at is how can we see them differently? Like Eric said, how can we keep going to bring it to maybe a green, or to see what we can resolve about it to shift those belief, those attitudes, the origin of those issues, so we're living more in the green. And I think that's what I love about Eric's plan is it is so simple, it is so easy. It helps people really categorize different areas of their life and even create potentially their own lists or graphics about how do I see these areas in my life that are yellow, green, and red, and how can I increase and improve my greens and work on the reds and yellows. So Eric, what are your thoughts on fitting the oxygen plan into that idea of self-concept and maybe what's going on with people right now?
Yeah, you know, with the oxygen plan, basically it's just a mental framework, and it's designed just to help simplify your life, no matter what's going on. It really comes back to the people, the places, the things in your life, and if they're either oxygen for you, carbon dioxide for you, which means they drain you, or carbon monoxide for you, which means that they are potentially lethal for you over time. Not just killing you physically, but your confidence, your sense of direction, the person that you're trying to be, your values, etc. With this time of year, with with the holidays coming up, it could be a pressure cooker for a lot of people. They're coming together, a family, and the decisions you have to make if you're going home or not, the additional expenses that come with that. And for a lot of people, there's some medical trauma that's happened. So, to your parents or your loved ones, things seem to come up, or at least hit harder and have more gravity this time of year. So more carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide in a lot of our lives. So we would say be very mindful of, making sure you get more oxygen this time of year. What's oxygen for you? Maybe it's that walk at the park with a friend or the dog, and getting out and playing some ball with your pet, or just grabbing a coffee with a close friend who gets you and who helps to fortify you and the person that you are. It helps keep you on track. It reaffirms the person you are. And so we would say just make sure that you're getting oxygen. You're breathing something. Make sure you're breathing in things that are green for you, meaning they increase your wellness and your sense of being, and restore you and reaffirm you.
So, what would be some of your guidance to people who feel like they're still carrying this election stress and they have to go visit family members? What would the oxygen plan say to help people to shift some of those reds to yellows and greens?
Absolutely. The oxygen plan, in its simplest form, is about self-preservation. And so it's you got to breathe the oxygen. You want to minimize how much carbon dioxide you're breathing in, and you certainly want to eliminate any carbon monoxide, right, that you don't want to deal with. So that might be discussion topics. Hey, guys, love you. I don't want to have any potential terroristic conversations. So these items are red for me. Is that okay? I don't want to have a discussion about X, Y, or Z, policy, politics, election, or whatever it is, regardless of which side of the aisle you're on. Is that okay? So just establishing that framework. And if the oxygen plan and framing it that way, that if that conversation is red, it's dead for today. Let's have a great family holiday. Hopefully that's helpful to some people.
So it sounds like what you're advising is that people set up structure in advance, that they have some of these structures before they come so they know what to expect. They're setting these guidelines and maybe even putting some limits in place. If this discussion happens and I'm feeling like I'm kind of moving towards that yellow or red, they could even give that framework, even call discussions maybe green, yellow, and red. Do you think that'd be a good idea?
I think it'd be a great idea. I think everyone at the family function, you love each other, not just because you're related. You have lots of family memories together, and they're all good and positive, and you just want to know that you can just have a great time with them without venturing into any hurt feelings, emotions. And so the oxygen plan would recommend that people just simply establish that upfront. Hey guys, can we agree that we're going to have a green oxygen holiday get together, and have everybody define what's green for them, what's oxygen for them. Oh, oxygen for me. Hey, can you bring that favorite dish that I like? That would be fun. Or, hey, crazy uncle, can you tell those stories that you tell every year, And so just framing what is oxygen for everyone, I think is a great question, not just for the holidays. Hey, honey, let's have an oxygen or a green weekend. What does that look like for you? For me, I got to catch my Florida Gators at 12 o'clock. Anything other than that, I'm open, right?
Right.
And so just having that discussion as a framework, maybe a lot of people finding that helpful.
So one thing I'm hearing from you, Eric, is just in simple terms, tell me if I'm wrong here, but just avoid talking about politics during the holidays, maybe. There's other things to talk about, right? It seems like in recent years, politics has almost become like sports. Like, I know when I was growing up, at our holiday tables, like we talk a lot about sports and everything. And then suddenly, in, I don't know, the last 10 years, everything became about politics. Why? Why can't we go back to the old days, right?
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a lot of people can talk about politics. It's fun, right? We've all engaged in the subject, and it's good. There's educational elements of it. It's great finding other people's points of view. Learning is green for a lot of people. Um, when the discussion veers off and gets deeper, or if maybe there needs to be a safe word to say, okay, oxygen, and so we bring it back, right? So we don't continue to spiral into a win-lose dilemma where, I got to make you feel bad or you make me feel bad. And now the conversation's over. I get in the car angry or something.
Yeah. So some
think
guardrails.
I think that's great advice and great insight. I think what we're talking about, what's happened with politics, is it's become a dichotomous issue. It's about good or bad, right or wrong, strong or weak, or win or lose. And people don't want to be seen as bad and or wrong and or weak. And then especially when it starts to move into mocking and a lot of those behaviors where they become purposefully demeaning, whether it's coming across as brash or smug. I think those are the things we want to look at in how are our emotions and are leading to our behaviors in that algebra, and then expressing ourselves. And some people know in their families other people's emotional algebra in ways. They know that if Uncle Morty starts having a few glasses of wine or whatever, then his algebra is going to change to this because this part of his equation is going to win out. Or they might know that if this person starts to pull away and get real quiet, they might be starting to get ready to blow. So sometimes without even saying anything, we know what's going to happen. And I think people want to look at those predictive equations and then even take this framework and say, are we moving towards the red? Are we moving in the yellow right now? And how can we bring it back to the green? And this, again, whether somebody says, can I suggest that we try this framework and set up this structure before we all get together for these holidays? I would love to try this. And I love that idea of a safe word, even, and saying, okay, yeah, let's have this safe word so that we can all know, and can we all agree to respect this? And then if somebody starts to get in those situations where somebody's either starting to pull away and withdraw, and you see them building, or they're starting to drink too much, that's where sometimes it can get really difficult, and people have to be ready to maybe make some tough choices, and again, see where am I moving towards, and to take care of me. It is not disrespectful to your family to take care of yourself and to set up those guidelines, because hopefully that's setting up guidelines for future family interactions. And sometimes we need to change a culture for that culture to grow. And I think that's what's happening a lot right now is people feel fearful of where's our culture going with some of these issues. And that's where people don't know what to say or how to talk about it or how to express it, because people have picked their sides. People are standing where they are. And it's almost like people feel like, do we have to head down this track? And yes, we are going to head down this path. That's the way it's going to be. So how can we do it together? And how can we respect each other on that path? And as maybe we see things, for everybody to have the courage to say, this isn't going in a direction I feel comfortable with, whether it's in our family or whether it's in our community or whether it's in our country. It's important to be able to speak up and feel heard. And that's I think what people feel so afraid of right now.
Okay, so we've talked about some good advice for how to approach these holiday meals and sort of keep the peace and keep family relationships intact. I want to ask both of you what you think of the woman who wrote in Huffington Post that she's canceling Thanksgiving and Christmas meals with her extended family over how people voted in the election. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think it's potentially damaging to these family relationships over the long term? I'm curious to hear both your thoughts on that one.
My take on it is simple. She made a determination. If it's red, it's dead. And if I already know how it's going to end up, so I'm canceling it so we don't crash like that. I love my family. I want us to stay together. It's too fresh right now. Her determination, not mine. And so if it's red, it's dead. She canceled it for the betterment of herself. A lot of times you don't know what people are going through. You don't know what else. She might have a sick parent and a sick dog, kid, whatever, financial, etc. And so she's saying that might be a little too much. That might put me over the edge. I can't afford to crash. I got to be my best me after those holidays. So much anxiety leading up to it. And so I respect her decision and would say she made a determination. That's red and I know it. And I don't want to breathe that carbon monoxide. And I don't want any of my other family members to breathe it. I don't want kids to witness what might happen. And so she made that determination. I applaud it. It was her decision.
Dr. E, what's your take on that?
I like where Eric took that, because again, it's what happens is a lot of people get into places of judgment. They hear these articles, some people are going to laugh at it, some people are going to go, yeah. And you're right, Eric. We don't know people's background. We don't know what they're going through. We don't know her family history and what things maybe have devolved to in certain situations. So I think that for her, that might be what she feels that she needs to do. And I think the other side of that is, again, is having some of these rants that we put out on social media. I think we want to look at the implications of that, because let's just say that she does have family stress and she wanted to say some of that, putting that out there to family, because now her family is on notice and now they understand where she's coming from. I think you got to look at how has her action affected other people. And in that, how does that affect future interactions with her family, or future interactions with her and them? Has she drawn a line in the sand now that other people respond and or retaliate to? And how do they start to build bridges? So if she went into the situation and said, I feel so distraught about this, and it pains me so deeply because of what I believe in so much, that I feel like I want to basically cancel these holidays and in my, and my time with my family. What I'd like to also consider is how can we build bridges in this time? The irony is, when you're talking about probably which side of the aisle she stands on, she probably stands on, more the left side of the aisle. She's part of a party that technically is one that you want to bring people together. And I think a lot of people feel like everybody has pushed each other away enough that now we have these, like I said, we have these lines drawn. How could she look at her own feelings and maybe put how she feels into that editorial to communicate her own internal process, to see if she can relate to other people? Because if that becomes the model, that if I don't get my way, then I'm going to send everyone away, isn't that what we've seen, again, the other side of the aisle do? That if I don't get my way, I'm blowing it up. If I don't get my way, I'm going to take my toys and go home. And that's, again, not knowing her situation personally, while presenting the way that we want to try to seek solutions together. And that's why we're doing this podcast. That's why we brought Eric on, because we could have talked about all these conflicts, but I wanted to bring somebody on that could help lead to having a solution, lead to giving us a structure that we can come from to find something that we can not only look at ourselves, but easily bring that to our family members to potentially say, hey, you know what? I saw this podcast about family relationships and he talked about this oxygen plan. It's really simple. And I'd love for us to consider that this weekend so that we can grow together as a family and as a community and see how maybe we have things we just don't talk about now and we can respect each other. And I can recognize that when I was on Facebook during the during the election, and I posted this, I understand you guys might have felt really disrespected like that from that. And I apologize for that. I own that. Obviously, we've learned that we can put things out there that aren't healthy. And that was kind of a red to you. For me, I felt like it was a green if we're coming from the structure, because I felt it got my feelings out. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be a red to other people. So these are some of the things that I want people to be able to consider, is how do we, again, find solutions to come together rather than find reasons to separate. But if other people in your family you believe and or know are not going to do that, yeah, don't expose yourself to that.
Yeah. And I feel like Eric's oxygen plan could almost help this woman put Christmas and Thanksgiving back on, right? The holidays back on, because just giving that framework of these are the guardrails, these are the guidelines for this holiday. Here's how we're going to be. Because when I first read that story, it struck me as an extreme reaction to things, to cut off family and whatnot. Then I thought, is it so extreme? Maybe it's just a cooling off period. Like, will this have super long-term effects on them? Or maybe it's just this year, and then as things ease and people get back to normal life and aren't talking about politics so incessantly the way it's been, the last 6 months, maybe next year they all get together again and everything's sort of fine. Do you
And I
think? Do you
think
think?
Eric, yeah, I think
Yeah.
Eric, one of the things that Eric brought up, it kind of alluded to, was that idea of have a subject, a topic list of things that are green to discuss, that are okay to discuss. And that way you're again setting structure, say, let's talk about sports, let's talk about family memories. So there are some activities that people could have at the table, that they go around and they talk about glad to be here. So that's what we used to do when I was in college in my fraternity. We'd say, I'm glad to be here because, or they can say, this is my rose today. My rose is X, Y, or Z, or this has been my recent rose. And you want to set up the guidelines. Your rose, you're glad to be here, can't have anything to do with politics. It can have to do with aspirations for the future. It have to do with things that you feel happy about for our family. It can have to do with things that are going to bring peace, and be careful how you position those. This isn't a time at Thanksgiving to be thankful to be together, to try to be smug or to get a dig in or try to just, show yourself out there. This is a time for gratitude, appreciation, love for each other. And that's what we want to bring it to. And that's like I said, love is like oxygen before we started this discussion. And that's, I think, what I see Eric and what he's done with his life, it's all about love, and it's all about bringing love to others. And that's where this whole idea of what we're talking about today is, how do we bring love back to the holidays?
Yeah. Eric, what do you think about that? I'm actually curious, Eric, what you think of your plan. Could it help some, and just using this woman as an example, families that maybe are fractured at this time of year, could they put their holiday gathering back on if it's been canceled, implementing your plan?
I would say possibly. I mean, it's ultimately her decision. What it is, the oxygen plan is just a framework just have a discussion, a framework to process your own thoughts. If she's able to go to her friends and family to say, "Hey guys, I want to host this holiday event. I want it to be green for everyone, including all the kids. Can we define, here's what green or oxygen means to me for that day and the kind of day that I want to have? Can we all agree to that? And if we can, here's the guidelines. Anyone who can agree to that, hey, welcome. I would love to have you. I want to see you. I would be remiss to say that one of the oxygen traditions of our family's Thanksgiving at my mom's house is we all stand in a circle and we hold hands and we talk about, and we look each other in the eye and talk about what we're thankful for, and so, I mean, from the kids to the grownups, that's what we all do. And we get it. And that sets the tone for that particular day and that weekend. Just, I'm thankful for everybody in this circle. We pay homage to those who are no longer in the circle, for those who are living who could not be there for whatever reason. It's just sets a tone of love and appreciation and thankfulness. And I think that's what people really want in a world that's becoming more disconnected. Being more centered and reconnected with those you care about and love.
An idea on that, Eric, is we have when we've had people over, make one of those garland things out of the circles of paper, and on each piece of paper somebody writes down what they're thankful for, and every year we add to it. So we're heading down to family in Florida, so I think it's reminding me that I think I want to take that and my wife started that tradition and add to it this year, because this year we have two new niece and nephews, or we've added to our family. We're going to get to see one of them when we go there. My daughter completed her first quarter in college. We have a lot of things together to feel thankful for, and I think we really want to bring that home, and so that's another way. So again, we're offering structure for how to build bridges rather than blow them up or tear them down. This is a time we want to do that. So what I did want to talk about too is getting into that emotional algebra specifically. So what we want to look at is right now, what are people probably feeling who are on the downside, who didn't get elected? Is, again, they're probably feeling sad. A lot of people are feeling sad. People are feeling afraid, and they justify their fear about what might change, about what things might happen in the long run. We have the unknown, so it's okay to feel afraid. Remember, fear lets us know we might need to protect ourselves. While we also then want to look at what can we do to mitigate some of that fear, moderate some of that fear, and then look at some of those other emotions that are affecting fear, like helplessness. Helplessness says when I need help. What happens when I feel like those in the government who are supposed to support me, take care of me, help my life be better, I feel abandoned by them or betrayed by them? Because so there are other emotions coming into that. They might feel like their political party failed them, their family failed them, and not seeing what's important to them. And so as we get into these things, we get into feelings of hopelessness and despair and the deeper emotions that can feel even heavier, that continue to affect the way we see the world, the way we see ourselves, as we're talking about our oxygen, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, things like that. So be aware of all these emotions and how they're playing in, and maybe even kind of write some of those down to see, okay, this is what I'm feeling. How can I work through those feelings? How can I work through finding more hope? Maybe we'll find through this possibly that if we're looking at a government that seems to be wanting to save money and not spend on things, maybe we'll find different ways that we can see better outcomes with that, because people often feel we're so entrenched in government spending. So look for possibilities that might be pleasant outcomes. There might be things that you feel are things to feel concerned about in terms of what's happening in some aspects of the government. And those are things, remember, we have the ability in our country to be able to speak our mind and to put those things out there. I want us to be able to speak our mind factually, to avoid emotions that demean or humiliate. I want people to speak their mind collectively if they can, and find people of like mind. And again, not to blow things up, but to affect change. And I think we have to see, how can we see how this can work out in ways and work to prevent the negative outcomes, and really everybody see the wisdom in it, not being absolutely right over being wrong, or to have to be good over badness, and good conquering evil. But how can we see equity through this time and see how we can maybe give some things a chance, while we also see that we also have our country is based on certain values that we want to continue to make sure are furthered.
Yeah, good advice, Dr. E. Eric, any other thoughts to add on to that, or?
No, I would just say live in the green, right? That's it, and have a great green holiday season.
That's
And
great.
I did want to add at the end. I was saving this for the end to talk about this, but I did have somebody who contacted me through Facebook, and they were very hesitant to go visit their family over Thanksgiving, because and it had to do with their kids who are adult kids, and their relationship with how they feel their parent is going to, how the other parent was going to respond. Because the person who messaged me was divorced from the father of the kids, and the kids were hesitant to want to go visit because of the behavior of the other parent. And that's something that can be so common when you're working with divorced families. You're not only working with issues with politics, you're working with issues with history. And where does that history take you? And I think the ability to potentially reach out and give it the option of saying, let's try to approach this from this standpoint, and I give you the choice to let me know if you feel you can.
Mhm.
I would like for your relationship with your kids to grow over the years. I understand that this issue with the recent politics is a major trigger. While yes, there's history that we all want to acknowledge. How can we help your kids and our kids to feel more comfortable with you? If you're willing to do that, and or if you're not, then just let me know, and that's okay. Our kids have choice, you have choice, I have choice, and I'd like to move forward from a more positive framework. And are you willing to set that up, as if we can move forward through this holiday and see how that works?
Yes, those are all good things to keep in mind. I want to say here, the holidays without a divisive election year are stressful for people, right? It can be a hard time for some reason. I always think about you guys, I'm sure, have seen Christmas Vacation, the movie. We watch it every year in our house, right? And I always remember the mom telling the daughter, as she's chopping a head of lettuce violently, she says, "It's the holidays, honey. We're all miserable." And I feel like that, that really speaks to a lot of people. There's some truth in it, obviously. So without the election adding to that weight that people feel on it, it's already difficult. So I think the things that Eric and Dr. E, some of the strategies you've given today, are going to be very valuable for people. Hopefully, people can take something away from that, and hopefully, I like to see people not destroy relationships over an election, and just find a way to stay a part of people's lives and not cause more division.
Right. Remember our podcast episode on politics, that we went back and we started by looking at the history of political division in our country. Our country has been resilient. We've been through a lot of change. We survived a civil war and we're stronger in ways after, and some people might disagree with that. Again, that's where, again, we look at how we can look at history. This is a very defining moment that we will find how we got through this in the future. And we want to ask ourselves, do we want to be a part of our own destruction, or do we want to be a part of our resilience? And we can say the same thing in our families, the same thing in our communities, the same thing within ourselves. And like Eric was saying, red is dead. So find ways to find oxygen, find ways to create oxygen that we can breathe between each other so that we can share this same space together. And if you purposely, as a person, are trying to create carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide for others, stop. It's not working. Guess what? You're breathing that carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide too. So we have to see that so many aspects in our life, people feel okay to throw out yellow and red comments or videos or things that purposely are to evoke the red and the yellow. It's not contributing to equity. It's not contributing to health. It's not feeding you. Somewhere inside, it's a part that I would want you to look at your emotional algebra and ask yourself, why? And what can I do to change this? What can I do to grow? What can I do to add to the world? Because we got to look at that, it's in the daytime and in the light when the plants produce oxygen. So let's start living in the light to live in the green and start creating that green all around us.
Yeah. I love the red is dead slogan, Eric. And I think that's great to apply to certain conversations or certain conversations to avoid, right? Like, I think people gathering at their Christmas table, they're not going to hammer out a treaty to end the conflict in Gaza or the Ukraine war, right? At their dinner table. So maybe just stay away from that stuff and stay on things like Dr. E, you suggested, family memories, or even sports. Remember when we used to talk about sports at the dinner table? So I love that idea. I hope people will latch onto it and actually implement that in their lives.
Me too.
So I think if we're kind of rehashing as post, we're going to add a kind of a comment, a visual comment list that you might be even seeing right now. But we're talking about create a structure in advance. We're talking about maybe talk about how you implement this. I would advise, and I'll ask Eric in a second, to talk how people can get to his Oxygen Plan app and do the assessment to see where they're at and maybe things that they can use that Oxygen Plan for. But also make sure that you're taking care of yourself. It's not selfish to take care of yourself. Just make sure that you're not doing it in a way that purposely comes to be a detriment for others. I loved the safe word approach. I think that was a great idea that came out of this as well, and ways to steer people back to this, and making sure that you're doing things, whether it's everybody hold hands, look each other in the eye. I love that. Remember, we talked about that thank you garland thing with the strips of paper that everybody writes on, staples them around to create that chain. So there again, there's a lot of strategies here, and there might be a few more that I've forgotten to re-mention, but we'll put on that list. So how can people get to the Oxygen Plan, Eric?
Absolutely. If anyone wants to know more about the program, they certainly welcome to go to theoxygenplan.com. And if you have interest in taking an assessment of your own mental health, there's the O2 Plan app in the Apple and Google app stores, the O2 Plan app. In it, there's a stress number questionnaire, 30 questions, takes about 2 minutes, and you'll arrive at your stress number for your home life, your work life, and your social life. And you'll see how you stand. And then there's tips and strategies to help you improve from there. So have fun. It's designed to be part of your resilience plan, your personal care plan. And so we encourage everybody to take it. It's free for the holidays, and so you can download it for free.
Fantastic. That's great to know about. Hopefully people will take advantage of that and try it out, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, Eric, it was great having you join us today, and great hearing about the Oxygen Plan, hearing about the app, and thought you gave so much good advice and some good strategies people can really take away and apply to their lives. So,
well, thanks for the invitation. Keep up the great work, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Keep living in the green, man.
Absolutely.
So until next time.